Hey guys, Enkidu here. So I wanted to show and give an update to my Voidforge Ice Crash Slayer. Like I said in the last video, this was a bit of a throwback character in that it was melee and it had just a huge amount of area of effect and damage. So I didn't change too much, but what I ended up doing was going through the tree and really prioritizing life. So I got just about all the life I could. I have something like 200% life, which equals just a shade under 62 at level 89. So I got 10 levels from the last video. I ended up not going down here and getting the wed nodes. It's just, in this portion of the tree, these nodes, and these nodes in particular, there's just so much damage, but there is not enough survivability. And part of the shame is, even with this as the Pantheon, you cannot be stunned if you've been stunned or blocked in the last 2 seconds. I still get stun locked while I'm attacking. In the time it takes to do that attack, I'll get stun locked out of it. Then I'm taking damage, and then I don't get leech, and then I don't attack, and then I continue to get hit more. So at the end of this clip, you'll see a Deathless Shaper run that I had, and it really was quite easy. I had only ever killed Shaper on one other character, which was a Chaos Inoculation Witch that had done Winter Orb in the last league. And this was honestly probably even easier. I really didn't find an impediment in 6k life versus 9 or 10k energy shield, just because the single target boss damage is so good, being able to leap around and then slam out that much damage. So I'm at 75 tooltip now, which is only 90% of my damage, and it does not count Ruthless. So Ruthless is about 30% more, and if we look at Melee Fizz, which is 48% more, that's 50 to 79, I don't know. Tack on another 15 or 20 on top of that, and then multiply that by 3 because of the 300% weapon. Physical damage gains is an extra element. It's pretty easily 400,000 or 500,000 damage per second overall, quite easily. And then you start including things like flasks, and then the triple penetration, the rainbow pen as I like to call it, from the Wise Oak, and I don't know, it might even be higher, and that's without really prioritizing damage too much on the tree. So one of the few things that I found was, in general mapping, this character had a fair bit of trouble with stuns, getting stun locked, and then things like ranged projectiles from the, not from the Templars, from the Marikath. Like 2 spears from over here would hit me and I'd just die. It ended up being quite a bit of a pain in the ass. So let me go ahead and show you a shaped iceberg here, and I'll just show you how the character maps as a whole, and we'll continue to talk about what the character's good at, what the character's bad at. So let's just go along here. Box clearing is great, as you would imagine from any large area of effect character like this. Too many years of Leap Slam on Fortify, it's so automatic with me now, but at least I have a way to keep up my endurance charges by doing that same thing, so it's not too bad. So I found in a lot of environments, if I'm the target and I'm just walking towards enemies and I'm just speed flasking, I can either sort of weave left and right here like this, and just sort of keep ice crashing and let the edge of my ice crash hit the monsters, or I leap slam on the pack and then ice crash from there. I found that to be easier to avoid a lot of projectiles and things that will stun you quite badly, or even if they don't stun you, they're going to one-shot you. I ended up really prioritizing life as much as I could, as much as you can with a lore weave at least. You know, if I had a main percent life, I might have 7k, that might feel a bit better, but still, you're going to get one shot, you know, a couple times an hour, just with the way the league mechanic is so overtuned. And oh, speak of the league mechanic, here it is. Let me clean this up and I'll show you guys. I've done a few of the battles. I've found them like just woefully, where they just don't give you much loot, to be honest, but I've only done the 2s. Maybe just everything's balanced around the 4s or the 5s. I'm not sure. Oh boy, speak of the Marikath. That's what I'm talking about. In that you can't really be a character that sits back, right? I mean, Shaper doesn't do that much damage. Now, granted, there's like 9 guys in there, but still. You see what I'm trying to say. And that was a pretty okay example. That was not a bad example of them doing way too much damage. But, I mean, roll into a minus max map, like any time, you'll just be absolutely one shot. It's really tough to deal with. So, in general, it's a good character. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun playing it, but I just feel like that the state of Path of Exile and the way that the game really is just pushing you to play, like it's not even an option anymore. Cyclone is a good choice because it does move you around. And when you're moving around, as you can see, when I'm playing this actively, I get hit by so much less stuff. Right? The guys that were just leaping at me, they leapt past me because I'm playing with the speed potion constantly up. Ooh, there you go. That's a good example. And then you see the damage. It's very nice. But what had happened there was I was stuck here on all these little spiders, and my mouse was just a little too far away. And so because it was a little too far away, my character wanted to walk 2 steps and then ice crash. And he couldn't because he was surrounded by monsters. So what ended up happening was my character didn't attack, things didn't die, my flasks ran out, and I had no leech. So that ends up being a really gnarly combo that killed me a lot. I could have done, I believe there's an option, is it under O, for always attack in place. I believe that's an option. I don't know. Maybe you guys could look at it. Let me know what you think if you've done that before. Another great option would have been if I had gotten Unwavering Stance. You know, I don't think I have much at all evasion. Yeah, I have actually 0. As it turns out, 500 evasion is 0% chance to evade. So that would have been a good option. It's only 3 points away. You know, you're not losing any evasion, and then you can't be stunned. But, I mean, I don't even have a jewel socket on this tree. Find me where you can drop 3 points, right? The big issue was when I had first seen this build, I had saw it and it had well over 2 million Shaper DPS, but he had no leech, he degenerated life because he didn't have enough life for regeneration, and he had 5k life, and he had an Abyssus. And I can't play that way. It's just, this character is squishy enough as it is. You know, there's no armor and there's no life from this socket. So if you wanted to make a more tanky version of this character, that's what I would suggest. Get a nice Shaper or Elder chest with percent life, maybe a maim, maybe minus mana cost, 1000 armor, 1500 armor, but then again, everyone wants those chests. You know, let's see what that costs. So we want a chest piece. It's called body armor. We want a body armor, we want a 6th link, we want 120 life, maximum life, maximum percent life. They always hide it down there. Let's say 8%. Now let's talk about armor. 1000 armor. What do we got? Only 3x. That's actually very reasonable. Oh, because it has the Mastercraft. That's why we're not talking the MAME stuff. So percent attack socketed gems. Search. Yep, 17x. 17 exalted for no resistance. So you see why it's so expensive if you were to really go that route. There's a number of ways you could have built it, but the shame of it is there's so many great DPS nodes down here that are not that, but even these, and they're so point efficient, but you have to get the leech. And you can only Mastercraft physical attack leech, which I feel is just such a bad idea because there's so many conversion skills in the game, and just people were complaining about that for years and years and years, and then they finally put in the tree, it's just attack, not physical attack. So all your elemental damage minus chaos attack builds and stuff like that, like Viper Strike, like pure Viper Strike, you'll not be able to leech. So you need it from the tree, and if I need it from the tree, I can't approach it from the bottom here, so I need to go to the top. But if I'm going to the top, it doesn't make sense. It's not point efficient to go up there. I tried dropping all of these. So from here up, I was looking at it in Path of Building. But these nodes is 40%, and that's just a crazy node. It's crit and wed and pen, and that's a great node, and that has regeneration to get me above the blood rage cap. But it ends up being a very strong character, but it just has some absolute weaknesses. So if I knew what I know now, I would probably find somewhere 3 points to drop. I don't know, maybe just these 3. I don't know, maybe these 2 and a 5% life node, although that wouldn't feel great. And go up here and get Unwavering, and then I'd just pick just a big armor chest. I would forego the maim, and I would say, give me a 2,000 armor chest. Nothing. About a 6 into 100. This is how I search for a lot of stuff, by the way. Nothing. Okay, so how about 1,800? Nothing. 1,500. Wow. Okay, so that's a narrow margin of victory there for you guys. If you're trying to do this, that's really pricey. I mean, 6x is about what I paid for the chest piece I'm wearing now, and that would be a much more agnostic option. You know, wouldn't really care about anything else. I had never had a 6-link lore weave, and I really wanted to try one, and then the flat physical and the increased elemental damage, and I sort of just got big eyes about it. But I would advise against going and doing that. It does add a fair bit of DPS, maybe, I don't know, a quarter or something like that. Actually, let's look at Path of Building. Okay, so this is the tree in Path of Building. Should look very familiar to what I was just showing you. We see now the total DPS is something like 300,000, but again, I have nothing ticked. So, unfortunately, when people share builds, actually it doesn't even have my whole character. Let me import this. Passive tree jewels. Items and skills, done. And now look at the tree. Okay, here we go. That's my tree. And configuration, that's my gear, good. Okay, so let's just say I'm at max frenzy charges, and I have fortify, and let's just say I've killed recently, and is the enemy maimed, burning, chilled, ignited? So here's the thing, if the enemy is shocked, like if you already crit because of the node here on, or not the node, but the mod on Voidforge, your elemental damage can shock. I assume that means, since this is elemental damage, it just means any of my damage. So it's just any of the elemental damage, fire, cold, or light, not just the light, can shock. So when they are shocked, it does quite a bit of damage. So is it a boss, and is it Ash, and let's take a look at anything else. And this is all in the sand stance. Keep in mind you could switch to blood stance and get a fair bit more DPS. And as you can see from the Shaper clip at the end, I didn't even bother switching. It's just, this is a lot of damage in between your items. So let's just activate these two. As you can see, that's a lot of damage. You go back to your calcs, Vol Ancestral Warchief. Is there a way to make sure that Vol Ancestral Warchief is on? I forget. But that's 500,000 easily right there, just with everything up. We don't even have the Blood Rage 15%, I think, on right now. Path of Building, in case you guys don't know, that's what the name of this program is really cool because it allows you to look at things like, well, why didn't I get these 3 nodes? Because as you can see at the bottom, it's only 2% per point. That's not terribly efficient. I mean, these nodes are so strong, it's 2.8, even with 2 travel nodes. That's 1.5 with all these travel nodes. That's 1.7 with only 1 travel node. But that's just because these prior to are so weak, but then this last one's so strong. And as you can see down here, that's 3.5, which is one of the reasons I really wanted to go down and get the wet instead of anything else. But it's a really cool tool because it shows you your percent life, how much life leech you have, what your regeneration is, what your resistances are, and it allows you to do a lot of different things. And in case you don't know how to import the link that I'm giving you in the video, what you would do is just import from Pastebin, and you just paste that in there, and boom, it's going to show you the tree, it's going to show you what bandit I did, it's going to show you on the different the hits of Ice Crash, what that's going to do, and in case you don't know what that is, now let me show you real quick. So it just goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's the various icicles that are coming out, and then in an outward radius, it does less damage, but it's only 10 or 15% less. So with mostly level 19 gems and everything like that, you might be at 500,000 Shaper DPS, and that's more than enough. You really don't need several million Shaper DPS unless you just want to, make a video to show your friends or something like that. You really don't need it. Something kind of wonky, and I addressed it last video. Again, I have not changed my accuracy rating, but the accuracy rating continues to change. Maybe it's sort of like the estimated physical damage reduction, in that every time I log on and do a few maps, it changes by a few percent because, I don't know, reasons. GGG would have to address that, but several days ago they definitely changed the hit mechanic, or the evasive monster sort of algorithm that runs. But anyway, so all I have is Seething Divine for Flask, Catalyst Divine, so Long Heal Freeze, Insta-Bleed, Lion's Roar is great. It's pretty much a staple in any melee build. Wise Oak, I showed you guys that several times, and then an Adrenaline. So in terms of leveling priority, I came down. It ends up being more DPS to not do the Fizz attack and instead get the accuracy and attack speed in this build, in my character. Out, generic two-hander, Golem's Blood, Leech. Once you get the Leech in any slow-attacking attack build, it's so much better. Come to get Thick Skin, Winter Spirit. Again, if you're going conversion, it makes sense to get these for conversion builds for Voidforge. It is not less damage to convert all your damage, because then all your damage is again converted into weapon physical. The only time you wouldn't take these conversion nodes while running something like Ice Crash and something like Voidforge is when you're instead intending to use the points that you would save pathing here in those nodes to go get more damage or life nodes. But Brutal Blade ended up not getting that. It wasn't very point efficient. The crit, coming over here, that's a ridiculous node. It's so good. And Blade of Cunning, coming over here. Blade Master. Pick up the 2 life nodes over here. This is just a great series of travel. It's probably my favorite travel nodes in the tree, because it's only about 10 or 15 points, but it gives you so much damage and life and regeneration and everything else. I ended up not getting this until after 70, as my stretch goals were to come up here and get the intelligence and things and resistances, so that I only had to wear that as intelligence. My jewelry as a whole is actually pretty weak. That one's okay. A little bit of Mastercraft of Wed % life. Big roll of Wed there, not too much life. But really what I wanted to do with my last slot, and this was like 2 Chaos or something like that, was give myself the exact resistances I needed to have 116 across the board, because that lets you get the 14% pen, which as you saw was, something like 100,000 or 800 or 80,000 DPS in endgame when that's up. I was trying out to get a different lab enchant. I ran lab a bunch in this character. It's a great lab runner if you're looking for it for that, but of course, this build had really no trouble with Shaper, so of course it would stomp lab. And then I think this was just the Merciless lab enchant that I had gotten. I ended up not really getting anything fun or awesome from the League mechanic at all. I made a fair bit of currency, a couple hundred C at least, on top of buying maps and stuff like that. Just operating and selling stash tabs and various things. I found a really nice jewel, and I made a couple of steel rings and stuff like that. Some people bought those, some people didn't. But so it was a really successful character, and I'm happy. There you go. And I'm happy I was able to do it, and I was really pleased with the way it turned out. And it was a fun throwback character, but just in the state of the game right now, if you're not playing ranged, if you're playing ranged, you're playing projectiles. And if you don't have 8k life, the game is balanced to one-shot you several times per hour at minimum. It's just, that's how I feel. Even with Fortify up on my main link as much as possible, it's a little bit goofy and frustrating. I could stomp on Shaper, but the League mechanic is so overtuned, the Syndicate stuff is so overtuned, that you are just, I feel like, forced to go ranged projectiles or moving Cyclone with Fortify or something like that. And it's a bit of a shame, because my heart will always go on for characters like this, but enough of that. It was a great character. It was lots of fun. Voidforges are incredibly cheap, something like 60 chaos in comparison to the 9.5 exalts that a poorly rolled Starforge is. So if you guys just want to have some fun and stomp a whole bunch of content and not really worry about how much damage guys are doing to you until about tier 11 maps, have lots of fun completing your Atlas. I got up to 121. And speaking of which, I can go spawn, I didn't even notice, but I can go do Elder again. It's not even a red Elder, it's a little baby Elder. But so anyway, guys, next up is the clip of me killing Shaper, and please leave any questions or notes you have down in the bottom, and I'll see you later. Thanks.
These memories are mine. I cannot lose them.
They lie to you, Father. I'm your true memory.
To save the future, the past must be sacrificed.